You know, Dr. David Coletto is a pollster who nailed the election results this May, and he joins us today to talk about a controversial subject that he has been plumbing using the dark arts of polling. Welcome to the show, Dr. Coletto.
Good to be here, Ezra. Thanks.
You have been asking questions that no one in Canada has dared ask. I'm talking about questions that go to the heart of our government broadcaster. Tell me a little bit about the polling you've been doing about the CBC.
So we did a poll of 1,003 Canadians, and we've asked a whole bunch of different questions. We asked questions on CBC funding, which we released today, and how much Canadians know about it and whether they think it's too much or too little. Yesterday we released numbers on whether the public thinks it's right or wrong for the CBC to be using taxpayer money to fund a court battle against the Information Commissioner here in Ottawa, and whether and how much information the CBC should be required to disclose. And then tomorrow we'll be releasing some information, some polling information on what Canadians think, what Canadians accept as in terms of reforms and changes at the CBC.
Dr. Colletto, I love the fact that you've asked these questions. You know what, I mean, I know in my gut that I'm opposed to the state broadcaster because I don't like the idea of government owning the media. Now, you have taken science. Tell me, before we get into the results, what's your margin of error, plus or minus what percent? Because I want people to know that we're not just talking about opinions now. We're talking about public opinion surveys using the science and statistics. What's the margin of error?
So our
here?
margin of error here, Ezra, is 3.2%, 19 times out of 20, and the methodology is the same one we used during the federal election, which, as you said, we got pretty close. So.
Doctor, thanks very much for clarifying that. Let's go straight to the first slide that has some amazing data. And I'll call for that on the screen right now to show our viewers. This is about, I'll just read the question. Since the CBC is a government-owned corporation, how much detail should it be required to disclose about how it spends its monies? And
yes.
Go ahead, Doctor.
So the interesting question here, what we found was that Canadians by and large expect the CBC to release pretty much everything about how it does its business, except for journalistic sources. So 59% of Canadians expect that. Only 25% want, or about a quarter of Canadians want or believe that the CBC should only release a financial summary like a publicly traded company would. And a very small chunk there, you can see, only doesn't think the CBC should release anything. So by and large, Canadians expect the CBC as a publicly owned company, as one that receives public money, to have to release information about not just broadly where it spends its money, but on some of the details that Sun News and Sun Media, as well as the Information Commissioner, have asked for. Absolutely.
Now, you've asked some other interesting questions. The next one is about spending, government spending. And let's see the next slide, if you please. This is how much funding did the CBC and Radio-Canada, that's the French version, receive from the federal government last year? So this isn't really testing an opinion because we know the answer is $1.1 billion. This is testing what people think. Now, this is stunning information to me. Tell me about it, Doctor.
Yeah, so what we found here was that very few Canadians could accurately select the right number there. Only 17% knew that CBC received $1.1 billion. What's, as you said, somewhat shocking is that almost 60% of Canadians thought that the CBC received $150 million or less. Not even in the order of magnitude of $1,000 million, only $150 million. So I think this is an important finding, not just because Canadians don't really know about it, but it sets the context about, the debate over the CBC, what to do about it, because so few Canadians actually know how much money they're giving to it. It has a lot to do with what to do with it next once they learn that information.
It's incredible. I mean, and some Canadians don't think the CBC gets any money. I mean, if the CBC got no money, I really wouldn't have a strong opinion about it at all, Doctor, because, it would be like any other broadcaster. Right. Let them say what they want, even Al Jazeera. I don't care. That's a stunning slide. Let's go to the last one. And it's asking, when you asked 1,003 Canadians, do you think that this funding is too much, about right, or not enough? Now, this is amazing information. Tell me about this statistic,
Right, so
Doctor.
For those who didn't know the answer, didn't know it was $1.1 billion, we told them. So we clarified the situation, brought all respondents onto an even playing field, and what we found was 60%, 6 in 10 Canadians believed that $1.1 billion was too much. Only a third believed it was about right, and then a really small sliver, I think it's 9%, said it's not enough. So by and large, when Canadians find out how much the CBC is funded, they think it's too much. We also know from our research that particularly Conservative Party supporters, almost 80% of them said it was too much, which suggests that if the Conservative government wants to take action here, they would have their base of support behind them.
You know, but it's not just a conservative thing. I mean, that statistic, I don't have it on my screen right now, but I think it's at 59%. Was that right? Said it was too much. I mean, the Tories only got about 40% in the election, so that means you're getting 20% more Canadians saying, so that's Liberals, that's probably NDP, that's probably Bloc. There it is right there. So 59%, oh, sorry, this is a different one. This is about freedom of information. I'm talking about how many people want to cut the funding. It is clearly a non-partisan, there it is. 60% said the funding is too much, only 9%. If that was an election, Dr. Coletto, that would be a blowout landslide. I've never seen a 60% win in a Canadian election. This is fertile ground for the Conservative government. I got one last question for you.
Sure.
I want you to take off your professor, I want you to take off your statistics PhD hat and put on your political hat if you've got one. Do you think that based on your science, the Conservative government will be motivated to cut back the $1.1 billion the CBC gets every year?
I won't speak to the motives of the government, but if I was their pollster looking at these numbers, I would advise them that they do have both, as you said, I think there's political cover here. They can take a principled stand if they believe in reforming the CBC and cutting its funding, because a majority of Canadians, not just as you said, their supporters, would not oppose it and in fact would embrace it.
Dr. David Coletto of Abacus Research, thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that you ask questions that no other pollsters do. Hey,